Hey Legionnaires, Steve Cox here with you from High Tech Legion. Electricity is the power that fuels our society. Without it, we would not really be able to do much of anything that we do, from just basic reading with lights. Imagine trying to read by candlelight. It's terrible for your eyes. People used to go blind so fast. Everything we do, watch a little TV, play on your computer, even starting your car, that's based off electricity. You've got your battery in your car. You can't do any of that. I don't know how many of you remember some of the original cars with the hand crank. You had to crank this thing on the front to give it a little bit of juice, like the old hand cranks on the telephones, the same way. It was basically a magnetic coil, magnetic and copper coil, that created enough electricity to fire off that first jolt to get the car started or something like that. How many of you could actually get out there and do that? So power is very important, and I have with me the GX2 650 watt power supply. This is an 80 plus bronze rated power supply from Cooler Master. It's got a 5-year warranty, 12 volt single rail, and this new feature, constant USB power. This is a dongle represented in the picture in the back here. It's a little dongle from the power supply that plugs into the USB port on the motherboard, where normally the front I/O panel USB would plug in, and then that front I/O panel plugs into this unit here, and I'll show that here in a moment on the video. But that provides constant power for charging things like phones or a little pad, or even some of the gaming mice that are wireless and things like that, and plug in via USB to provide power for that. So on the back here it shows, and of course you can't read it there, but it talks about the non-stop power that I just mentioned, the single volt rail, and multiple built-in protection systems of OVP, UVP, OPP, OTP, SCP, and OCP, and we can get into what each one of those mean a little bit. On the side it just shows what has a sticker indicator for which type, basically which country you're in, and then on the side, on the other side, it gives all the specifications, the model number, the type is Intel form factor 12 volt ATX. It's got active PFC. That's the power control. So then input voltage, it gives that for auto range 90 to 264 VAC. The input current is, I can't even read it, 10 amps at 115 VAC and 5 amps at 230 VAC. The input frequency 47 to 63, all those type. It's got a 120 millimeter intelligent fan. Let me see, 80% load. It's got a greater than a 16 millisecond hold up time. That's basically if power is interrupted at your house, if the power from your wall is interrupted for just a brief second, like not really a blackout obviously, but just a brief millisecond, it won't cause a full reset of your computer. It says that even though it's 80 plus bronze rated, you can expect about 85% efficiency. That's pretty good. It talks about the dimensions at 150 by 140 by 86 millimeters, and then gives that also in inches. So the box itself has a lot of good information for you, and that is the GX2 650 watt power supply by Cooler Master. Now let's get over on the table and take a closer look at it, and I'll show you the USB dongle and all of those little features. Okay, here is the GX2 by Cooler Master. This is a 650 watt power supply. You can see that it has a pretty large mesh grid here, honeycomb shaped cutouts with that 120 millimeter fan on the inside there for cooling, and then of course a lot of area in the back, and you can see some large heat sinks in there, and lots of room for ventilation and cooling. That's going to keep the power supply cool and allow it to run pretty efficiently. You see, I'm stuck on the table there. There we go. Each side of the power supply is labeled with the GX2 650 watt and Cooler Master logo, and that is for, on the bottom side of the case, the power supply can be oriented so that the fan points out, you know, and then same thing for the other side. So it's got the branding on both sides. That's kind of neat, you know, for people who want that. It's got all of your information here across the top of the power supply, product number, 650 watt, 80 plus bronze, you know, all the things that I already covered based off of the boxing and the packaging. So let's get right into looking at the unique features. Move that out of the way so we can see it on the white here. This is the constant power USB dongle that I keep talking about. And I say dongle, I don't have a better word, but basically this plugs into the motherboard where your front I/O port USB normally would, and then the front I/O port USB plugs into this, and that, like I say, provides constant power from the power supply even while the computer is off. Then of course you have your standard connections like the 20 by 4 pin ATX motherboard connector. You know, you've got pretty standard layout, a cable with 3 SATA power connectors on there, another cable with the same 3 SATA connectors, so one for standard hard drive bays and one for optical drives and you know, anything else that you might put in an optical drive. And then of course you have your 4x4 or your 8-pin CPU power for the, you know, top of the motherboard that provides power for your processor. And then you have the 3 Molex and a single 4-pin for a floppy drive, you know, just in case you still have one of those laying around. And of course the Molex is going to be used for any other peripherals, any other additions, LED lighting, additional fans, anything like that. And you have a single cable with double 6x2 power. You know, most of the newer graphics cards use either 2 6-pin plugs or a 6-pin and a 8-pin. So this is going to provide, you know, enough cabling, enough power for pretty much one graphics card. It's not really made for SLI, but if you do have some of the older graphics cards that only need a single 6-pin or a single 8-pin, you could use this, you know, and just route it and hit both graphics cards, I mean, with this single power supply, assuming that it would have enough power, which I imagine it would. Again, 650 watts is generally more than enough for most people. You can look at the back here. I want to show they've got the cabling all tied off pretty tightly with a zip strip to a hole here coming through the back of the power supply. That is bare metal. It doesn't have any added protection to prevent any nicks on the cabling or anything. But I assume it's not really needed. It's not really a sharp edge or anything. It's not just a cutout. You can feel that it's rounded and you know, and it's continually painted. And then of course all the cables are braided and coated in a nylon coating to provide protection for that. My final thoughts for the Cooler Master GX2 650 watt power supply. It's a good power supply, nothing wrong with it at all. There are a few things that it seems to lack a little bit. You know, for the price, I think you could get comparable modular power supplies. You know, again, I don't believe that the constant USB power is make or break for anyone. While it's a neat feature, I think actually the little dongle that comes off when put in a case and somebody's trying to get their cables really nice and tidy and get them all routed perfectly, that added little red and black cable going across right in front of your motherboard, I don't know, it'd be nice if it were a little longer and could be maybe routed behind and then brought around like normal, or perhaps if it, I don't know, something, you know, it needs to be less visible is what that comes down to. Less visible, keep the area clear and keep the wires clear, and that leads into, again, the modularity. For the $69.99 price point, US dollars, there are, you know, 600, 700 watt power supplies available that are modular. And while this Cooler Master power supply may or may not be of higher quality, I know Cooler Master consistently puts out high quality product, and I, for one, like Cooler Master products a lot. I really don't think this power supply is really incredibly competitive with other power supplies in the same field, in the same, you know, power range and price range. So I'm just giving it a silver award. Again, it could have been a little better, but it really could have been a little worse too. So that goes for that. One of the other reasons I want to point out on the back of the box here, and of course you can't see it, but it clearly states right here, a single 12-volt rail output for the most demanding SLI or crossfire configurations. But as I showed, let me grab this. As I showed in the earlier part of the video, the cabling is such that there's only one cable for you know, PCIe cards, namely graphics cards. You have two 6x2 connectors on there. Let's stick this somewhere so I can use both hands. You've got two 6x2 connectors on there. That's enough for one card. So you can talk about SLI or crossfire all you want. The power supply is not realistically capable of that, except for with older cards that may only use a single 6-pin or a single 8-pin. If you've got a couple of those cards laying around from a few years ago, then that'll be fine. Like I say, overall, the power supply itself, really good, really stable power. You know, when I tested it and ran everything, there were no problems at all. It claims approximately 85% efficiency. I would say it hit that mark very well. You know, so I don't really have any complaints in the actual function of the power supply, but I think they kind of overreach their statements, and the price point, like I say, price point really, I think people building computers today expect modularity, and this is obviously not modular, so more than likely you're going to have a couple extra cables just laying in the bottom of your case or trying to stuff and hide behind the motherboard tray. Nobody wants that. So going to give it a silver award overall. Pretty good power supply, nothing wrong with it. If it fits your needs, it's going to be great, and you know, not a bad price, but again, not incredibly impressive. And I like Cooler Master a lot. I think I've said that a couple times now. So I'm Steve Cox with High Tech Legion signing out. I want to remind you guys to come over and join us in all of our other stuff. I mean, YouTube, especially now with YouTube's change in comments, hopefully they'll fix that or do something. It makes it that much harder to respond to you guys. If you want to talk to us, ask us questions, now that's incredibly difficult. We can't directly necessarily reply to each individual comment. So you come talk to us, join us on our forums at www.hightechlegion.com. Follow us on Twitter for daily updates. You'll be able to see every time something new comes out and we post something, have a new benchmark or a new software tutorial, anything like that. You'll get updates there. And then again, also on Facebook. You know, I know everybody uses Facebook. Even my mom's on Facebook. She doesn't even know how to turn the computer on. My nephew has to do that for her. So join us on Facebook, like our page, and follow all of our regular updates.